Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Acraya LinkedIn Live. I'm Pia Pfeiffer, a UX program manager at Acraya, and I'm incredibly excited to host today's discussion. We are living in an era where product teams are being asked to move faster than ever, often with tighter budgets and leaner teams. From a program management perspective, the ultimate challenge is maintaining speed without breaking the product lifecycle or losing sight of the user. To make to help us make sense of how UX research is evolving to meet this challenge, I'm joined by my colleague, Ryan McGarry. He's a UX program manager at Acraya supporting Google. He holds a PhD in human factors and applied cognition, and he has been leading applied research teams for over 15 years. Ryan, welcome.
Thanks, Pia. It's great to be here. And also, this is a topic that hits really close to home because every day research leaders are staring at the same puzzle, so to speak. So, how do we maintain rigorous, trustworthy data integrity when UX study timelines are shrinking and the demand for insights is really skyrocketing? So, I'm excited to dive into how we're striving to solve that.
And today we're unpacking exactly that. We're going to call it the lean UX research era. And we want to break down how AI and this concept of the coach model aren't just trendy buzzwords, but essential operational shifts that are fundamentally reshaping our field. So let's talk about budgets and scale. Historically, there was this belief that more data always equals better data, like huge sample sizes, extensive or lengthy field studies, etc. But today, teams don't necessarily have that luxury. You often have engineering wanting to move a lot quicker than research and other variables like that. So, how should companies be thinking about UX research when resources are tight?
This is probably something that almost all companies that conduct UX research are thinking about. And really, the key to lean UX isn't doing less research, it's doing smarter, faster research. So, in a tight market, we have to move away from the obsession with those historically larger sample sizes that you used to see with traditional UX studies, especially like 30 participant sample sizes with qualitative UX work. So, for instance, with my team, we lean heavily into rapid qualitative focus studies. And so we aim for 2 week turnaround times and typically just test a handful of participants per study. And so there's a classic foundational rule in human factors and usability research where testing even just 5 people can really uncover the majority of core usability issues. Now, this is still something that would provide directional findings, but it doesn't mean that testing just 5 people would not be useful. It is, and like anything else that's a tool, if you use it right, it can be really helpful. So if you run a fast study with just 5 people, fix those big glaring issues, and then test another 5 people a couple weeks later, you get vastly better product velocity than if you were to spend, for example, like 6 weeks recruiting and interviewing, call it 20 people all at once. Especially when you oftentimes have to pause testing to revise the script and adjust your questions based on what you started hearing from that first batch of participants.
I remember that rule from school. Is it something like testing 5 to 8 users can discover like 85% of things that could come up in a study?
Something like that, yeah.
And I love that you mentioned product velocity because that's music to a program manager's ears. But looking at it from a pure project pipeline perspective, my immediate concern with smaller sample sizes is mitigating risk. How do you ensure that you aren't missing the bigger picture or driving a product roadmap down a rabbit hole based on the feedback from just 5 people?
So you rely on triangulation. Instead of betting the ranch on one massive study, you combine multiple data points. And so you take those 5 qualitative user interviews and then pair those with existing product analytics, existing study data from past projects, and look at a quick behavioral survey or even like A/B test data. And so when those different vectors point to the same user pain point, you can actually move forward with much higher confidence.
That's crucial. It's kind of like building a mosaic of data rather than relying on like one single silver bullet.
Yep.
Speaking of shortcuts, we can't talk about lean efficiency with talking about one of the biggest talking points in tech right now, AI. It's interesting. I've seen both using AI to conduct user sessions, but also using AI to be the participants in these sessions as well as like synthetic user data. There's a lot of hype around using AI personas to replace human testing entirely. Given your human factors background, what's your take on this? And is it a viable shortcut for a lean team?
Yeah, you could kind of call this the golden rule of synthetic data. So you really use synthetic users to test your system and to really help drive hypotheses or important new questions that should be asked. But you don't use it to test your users or to replace humans. Synthetic data has a place. It can be helpful if you use it right, but you still have to be very careful with how you use it and when. And so it can be really valuable for pilot testing your research scripts, for instance, checking the logical flow of a new design concept or brainstorming edge cases you might have missed. But synthetic users still have problems with accuracy compared to human participants. And they don't do a good job of actually simulating sincere, genuine human emotions like frustration or even trying to detect cognitive overload in a lot of instances, or the unpredictable environments real people actually operate in. So if you rely entirely on synthetic user data for like user empathy, you're just validating your own echo chamber. It's a tool to prepare for real humans, but it doesn't replace them.
Yeah, it's human-centered design or human-computer interaction, not computer-computer interaction. So AI shouldn't replace the human participant, but it's definitely a game changer for the internal engine of a research team. It shows us beautifully from a philosophy of lean research into the actual execution. So how is AI acting as an operational catalyst to keep these rapid 2-week cycles moving on your team without burning out our people?
Sure. You could say that AI is our big force multiplier. Think about where a UX researcher's time actually goes. And so it's not just the hours spent interviewing, it's the hours that you spend transcribing, manually tagging transcripts, clustering findings from participants, and consolidating your notes into groups or categories of user response data and formatting reports. So AI shifts us from spending, call it 70% of our time on the admin execution and 30% on deep analysis to the exact opposite. So these days we really use AI to instantly summarize transcripts, identify top-level semantic themes, and auto-tag insights in our research repositories, that is. And so it really shaves days off the synthesis process. It helps a lot, which is exactly how we maintain that 2-week turnaround time without burning out our researchers and also trying to address or answer more high-level research questions with the same number of studies we're executing. And Pia, are you still there? Or did we lose you? All right, we're gonna give Pia just a minute to come back. So hopefully the internet connection is restored. But what I'd say is just kind of building on this, we know that data security and cross-functional visibility are really critical. And so if you were to kind of ask yourself what's a practical step that a lean team can actually take right now when it comes to being able to leverage AI safely across the organization, I'd say start with your research repository. If you have a backlog of old research reports that nobody reads, for instance, then you would want to really feed them into a secure private AI model. You don't want to risk exposing PII, like any confidential information. Hey, Pia, you're back.
Sorry about that.
All good. So since you had a little internet downtime, basically I just kind of started talking about how the practical next step lean teams can take is feeding their old study reports and data into a research repo. So putting that into like a private AI model and using that to build an internal like expert QA bot. So instead of a PM asking a researcher, hey, have we ever done research on our checkout flow? They could instead actually just query that repo bot, and that would instantly surface past insights, saving the team from running redundant or duplicate studies. And that's an immediate efficiency win.
Yeah, when you're looking at project timelines, I think synthesis and documentation are traditionally some of the biggest bottlenecks where momentum goes to die. So if AI can cut that time down, it can change the entire roadmap. A lot of times you have those meetings on the calendar where people can download that information, and this sounds like it can build a live model where they're able to do it at their convenience.
Yep.
And I love that example because, yeah, it seems to unblock the product team instantly. And it's kind of a setup for the broader structural shift we wanted to discuss today, which is, when you give non-researchers the tools to access data independently, you're changing the organizational structure. And this brings us to the coach model. So Ryan, for those who are watching and trying to restructure their teams, how do you define this model?
Sure. So the coach model is really like the evolution of research democratization. It's something that you're seeing a lot these days, and traditional UX researchers are probably afraid of this or don't like to see it. But really, if you're teaching other people outside of your industry or your area of expertise how to use the tools that you have on your belt, that's overall still a good thing. And so in the old model, UXRs kind of acted as like a centralized agency in a company. So product teams would submit like an intake request or a ticket, and the researcher would do all the work. And that can really create huge bottlenecks. With the coach model, though, we divide research into two categories or tracks. The first is upstream, where like dedicated UXRs focus purely on high stakes, ambiguous foundational work, like exploratory research for a new product line or deep ethnographic studies. And the second track is downstream, where product managers, designers, even engineers are really empowered to run their own quick usability tests, card sorts, or concept evaluations. So the UXR's role shifts from being the sole researcher executing studies over to being the coach who enables the team. They set the strategy, and they ensure high quality when other people are helping to run that research.
And this is where my program management radar really goes off. On paper, this can be like a beautiful way to scale resources, but from an operational standpoint, democratization can sometimes be, a double-edged sword. So if non-researchers are running studies, how do we protect the business from bad data? And how do we stop a well-meaning PM from asking leading questions or introducing confirmation bias?
So that's really the big question. And it's why the coach part of the title is really critical. So you can't just give a PM a login to a testing tool and wish them luck and assume all of the research will go as well as if you just had a regular trained UXR conducting that work. You have to build rigid operational guardrails. So on my team, we focus on building foolproof templates, pre-scripted interview guides with specific wording that researchers can quickly grab and use for their scripts, and automated tooling workflows. So For example, we create standard usability testing templates and resources where the prompts are already vetted and the wording is known to be neutral. So the goal is to kind of engineer the bias out of that process as much as possible before a non-researcher even comes into play. So the UXR coach reviews the study design up front, and they let the PM execute it, or whoever that non-UXR is. And then they help them synthesize the results appropriately at the end. So, Pia, are you still with us? Okay, well, I guess I'll kind of take it from here while Pia's internet hopefully gets back online. So basically, we have this big, new coach model. It's become a lot more ubiquitous in like the UXR world. And so there's a natural bridge here to AI supervision. So it's not just about humans coaching other humans. We have to bring that same coaching mindset into how we govern AI. Just like we create those rigid operational guardrails for product teams so they can run their own research safely, we also need to treat AI supervision with that same level of care. So you could say that it's really about setting the rules of the road for our AI agents. That's a very important thing. So defining the guardrails and giving clear strategic oversight so the technology acts as a partner that supports our research goals rather than introducing new biases or risks. So it's, again, really important to have that oversight of AI, just like when you ask ChatGPT a question or when you're simply reading a news article. You can't implicitly trust everything you read. You need to also verify that information yourself. And so here, even though Pia wasn't able to be around for the entire session, I'd say that it was still a good discussion where, we're getting close to the end of our time here. We really wanted to keep this under 20 minutes or as close to that time mark as possible. And so I just, want to be able to leave all of you guys in the audience with a concrete roadmap. So if a research leader, a PM, or a design director is watching this today and wanting to transition their team into this efficient AI-enabled coach model, then the question would be, what's the checklist that they need to follow? And I would say you could break this down to 3 actionable pillars or categories. The first is embracing the power of 5. If you're starved for time or budget, then don't paralyze your product velocity waiting for large sample sizes. You can run quick, iterative, qualitative tests with 5 or 6 participants, 10, 12, fix what you find, and then triangulate those findings with your analytics or other data sources. And then the second pillar, you could call it, would be operationalizing AI safely. So don't use AI to generate fake user insights. Instead, use AI to automate your workflows. Use it for rapid synthesis, transcript clustering, and making your existing research repo actually searchable. And then lastly, the third pillar is to transition to the coach model. So if you're a research leader, look at your roadmap. Move your highly trained researchers upstream to tackle those big strategic unknowns or top-level questions that are a little more ambiguous, and build the templates and guardrails necessary to let your product and design peers or any non-UXRs supporting the research to help them safely tackle those routine usability questions, things that your senior level UXRs don't have to spend their time asking about, because you don't need people to run those studies when they're pretty straightforward and simple for someone who doesn't have traditional UXR experience. So if you do these three things, you'll really extend the reach and impact of UX research across your whole org without compromising on quality or data integrity. So basically implementing these operational guardrails, like empowering our cross-functional partners and leveraging AI as a workflow engine, really is the blueprint for the future of UX. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in today. And so since this is just a short focused session, we can keep the conversation going offline. So please, comment on the LinkedIn post. And if you have any questions for myself or Pia about scaling your research workflows, managing product velocity, or implementing the coach model, please drop those into the comments section below the video, and we can dive in and reply after this is off the air. And you can also connect with us directly here on LinkedIn or reach out through the email address sales@acrea.com. Again, that's sales@acrea.com to learn more about how we can help organizations optimize their UX research and product programs. So thanks again for all of your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.